I just gotta save this new file for chapter 4. Okay. Let's see. Okay, chapter 4 is... Okay. Chapter 4. I woke in my own bed, feeling alert and well-rested, but I jolted upright as soon as my memory returned, frantically feeling my injured arm. I could detect no sign of any injury, however. I fell back against the pillows, gasping. Had I imagined the whole thing? I couldn't possibly have been sleeping long enough to heal completely. Oh, and Timothy is appearing, and I just want to sort of set up a voice for Timothy, who is Arya's youngest brother. Okay. Just do a quick label for him as well. She's awake! The bellow made me startle so badly I nearly toppled out of bed. I glared at my youngest brother, but he was turned toward the door, shouting again for our mother. Are you trying to shatter my eardrums on top of everything? I growled at Timothy. Are you trying to shatter my eardrums on top of everything? I growled at Timothy, who at 14 was all gangly long limbs, and who usually preferred to communicate in grunts. When Harvey carried you into the dining room, you looked like you were dead, he said as a more I just want to label this, because this is a much better point to have for Timothy's voice. Okay. He said at a more normal volume, twisting back to me and grinning. Well, clearly I'm not, I said shortly, not wanting to think about the embarrassing moment. Even for you, it was a dramatic birthday meal. He leaned back in his chair. And to think I thought it was going to be boring and tried to get out of attending. I narrowed my eyes at him, but I couldn't muster any true antagonism. From the position of his chair by my bed, he had been watching over me, waiting for me to wake. Then he continued speaking, extinguishing my goodwill. And now you're finally awake, so Mother will have to let me free. Did you have to sleep so long? I've been dying here. I pushed myself into a sitting position, glaring at him. You've been dying, he grinned. Well, you just said you weren't. My lips twitched and his grin widened. Sandwiched in the middle of 4 brothers, I knew better than to take their sallies personally. For their part, they had decided years ago that I was a good sport and treated me accordingly, much to our mother's dismay. 2 tall figures appeared in the doorway at the same time, shouldering each other in their efforts to squeeze into the room first. I sighed at both of them, but directed my words toward Anson. As the oldest, shouldn't you show a little more dignity? He scoffed. Okay, I just want to, again, make a little marker for Anson. Oh, gosh, I cut myself up there when I said he, scoffed. Crap. And for some reason, I think I accidentally deleted the bit with Timothy. Okay. Getting myself sorted here. So Anson is the oldest. Okay. He scoffed. Mother's been making us spend every spare minute that we're not at work kicking our heels at home. Anyone would think we were keeping vigil at your deathbed. I need to see with my own eyes that you're awake and I can finally be free. Ellis, the brother between me and Timothy, snorted. A tragedy indeed. Not sure I like that voice. So where is Ellis? He is 16. A tragedy indeed. All the girls at the market must be despairing at the absence of their favourite flirt. Anson smirked back. Only the pretty ones? I sighed loudly. Are you trying to make me sick again? All three of them rushed quickly to my side, jostling each other as they plumped the pillows behind me and straightened my blankets. Dearest Arya, Alice said, is there anything you need us to fetch? We are utterly dedicated to your full recovery. Yes, I can see that, I said dryly. What was Mother thinking, keeping you all chained here? I held up my arm and moved it around experimentally, still unable to find any trace of the injury. I'm completely fine. What in the kingdom happened? Thalie, Anton said promptly. Mother always said you'd done well coming to her notice, and she was proved right at last. Thalie had a healing composition on her, and she insisted on using it. My brows rose. Thalie was carrying a healing composition able to fix an injury like that. Timothy shrugged. She said it was a side effect of that expedition into the mountains with the Sakali princess, the one that made her famous. She said she always keeps a stack of healing compositions on her. She has plenty of mage friends to supply them, Ellis added in an She has plenty of mage friends to supply them, Ellis added in an admiring tone. And not just minor mages either. One's from the 4 great mage families. Our family is very grateful that she chose to use compositions from her own personal supply on Arya. I'm going to do that line again because it says he says it in a repressive tone. Our family is very grateful that she chose to use compositions from her own personal supply on Arya, Anson said in a repressive tone. Ellis glared at him resentfully but didn't say anything. I knew he hadn't meant to minimize Thalie's gift with his words. He had hero-worshipped her since the first time she visited my family. Their mention of Thalie made me squirm uncomfortably, however. Had Zachary already visited her? She would be even more disappointed in me after giving me such a valuable gift. Even Zachary, a mage himself, hadn't had the necessary healing composition, and yet Thalie had gifted it to me without a thought. I swung my legs around, determined to get up. If I remained stationary in bed, I would only feel worse and worse. If Thalie wanted to upbraid me, it was better to face it as soon as possible. A head rush hit me as soon as I stood, however, and my vision blurred. Okay. I'm just going to need to correct that. There we go. A head rush hit me as soon as I stood, however, and my vision briefly blurred. I put a hand out blindly to steady myself, and all three of my brothers lunged for me, keeping me upright. "Quick, get a hold of yourself before Mother sees," Timothy hissed. I rolled my eyes and pushed them all away. "I'm fine. I just got up too quickly. How long was I in bed for anyway?" "4 horrifically long days," Anson said. "For what days?" I nearly blacked out again. They had to be teasing me. I cannot have been sleeping for 4 days. "Thalie gave Mother 2 compositions," Timothy said. "The first was for healing, and the second was a working to encourage rest. Apparently you have to rest after such a significant healing, and they seem to think that would be a challenge where you were concerned." He and Ellis exchanged smirks. "Your body must have needed rest badly if the composition made you sleep for so long," Anson said more gently. "How could you let me sleep for 4 days?" I wailed, unable to process their words. "I've missed the last test." "Exactly." My mother appeared in the doorway, regarding me with satisfaction. "Given how obsessed you were with that test, I knew I would never keep you in bed and resting without intervention. This was for the best." "Mother, how could you?" My voice cracked and tears pricked at my eyes. "Byron is a robot just like Gina, and now Teacher Wendell will have an excuse again, just like 2 years ago." My mother's expression softened, and my brothers cleared their throats, exchanging looks that I caught in my peripheral vision. Sorry, I need to get a sip of water. They weren't comfortable with my display of emotion, but they shared my anger over Teacher Wendell's previous betrayal. Bustling over to me, my mother put a comforting arm around my shoulders. "It would be one thing if you had a chance, but everyone says the fourth-year trainees are strong this year. There isn't going to be a sealing ceremony this summer, and you would have put your health at risk for nothing." I swallowed the lump in my throat, trying to blink back my tears. Mother had never understood the drive that pushed me to keep going after Gina stole my place. Uh, oh, Harvey. Oh, I missed out on Harvey. New character's voice. Okay. Big news! Is that right? Oh. "Big news!" The shouted words came from the front of the house. "Big news! Where are you all?" "In Aria's room," Anson called back, and my final brother appeared in the door, panting from an apparent run. We all stared at him. At 20, Harvey had mostly outgrown the youthful boisterousness that still plagued Ellis and Timothy. If he was this excited, it really was big. It really was big news. "They've caught the shrouded mage," he gasped out, grinning at us all, before his eyes fastened on me. There's going to be a sealing ceremony after all. My mother gave a soft, astonished My mother gave a soft, astonished cry as I stumbled backward, sinking onto the bed. Their voices swirled around me, talking and exclaiming. Several supporting hands reached for me, but I pushed them all away. After a few moments, my mother swept my brothers out of the room, pausing in the doorway herself. "I'm so sorry, Arya," she murmured. "There's still a chance you'll be the one." I shook my head silently, not looking at her. I had missed the final test completely, not just performed below my usual standard. There was no way the teacher would miss his chance to choose another robot. Everything I had worked for was over. Seems like a good time to delete a couple of... Okay. So that's the end of that scene. My family tiptoed around me over the following 2 days, not even pressing me to tell them how I had ended up injured on my birthday. They didn't mention my continued presence in the house either, no one asking why I was missing my final days of school. But on the last day, I forced myself to leave the house at last. I had no hope that I would be chosen over Byron. My mother had informed the school of my injury while I was sleeping, but I knew that wouldn't weigh with Teacher Wendell. But I had to officially confirm the situation. My appearance in the classroom proved just as awkward as I had anticipated. The happy hum and buzz of the end of the year dimmed the moment I appeared, and the admiring crowd around Byron stepped back slightly. Those who spoke to me did so in quiet, uncomfortable voices. Even the teacher fell back before my accusing eyes, addressing me in a brash, blustering tone that showed he had some shame lurking deep inside. I left early. I didn't have any friends of my own left at school anyway. I had been the only 18-year-old left. I couldn't bring myself to go straight home, though. As uncomfortable as school had been, my family weren't much better, tiptoeing around me as though... Okay. Tiptoeing around me as if I was still an invalid. At least the visit to my school had provided the information that the sealing ceremony was to take in... Okay. Let's try that again. At least the visit to my school had provided the information that the sealing ceremony was to take place in 2 days' time. I would give myself those 2 days to wallow and grieve, I decided. And after the sealing ceremony was complete, sealing the hopes of my childhood and youth with it, I would think about the future and try to find a way to start fresh. The thought seemed impossible. Despite my mother's attempts, I had defiantly refused to think about any other future path than being sealed and joining the university's common-born class. At most, I had sometimes wondered if I might accept an offer of a job from Faithy after I was sealed, rather than attending the university. But given she was a robot, I had never seriously considered it. My steps led me aimlessly around the familiar streets that lay between my school and home. I knew this section of the lower city so well that I didn't need to pay attention to my path. The thoughts that consumed me were unrelentingly dark. I had been overlooked for sealing again, rendering pointless every effort I had undertaken to ingratiate myself with my teacher. I had put myself in danger for nothing, and in the process I had given Zachary, the first mage I had ever properly met, a disgust of me. Even Faylie must have given up on me. Despite gifting me the compositions, she hadn't come to check on me since, so I could only assume Zachary had met with her and delivered the letter as promised. Oops, I forgot who's calling here. Ah, there we go. I thought it was Zachary, but... Aria! The unfamiliar voice calling my name made me start and look up. I didn't want to talk to anyone. If one of the locals, used to seeing me dashing back and forth between school and home, offered sympathy and commiseration, it would be unbearable. But the young man who strode to my side wasn't a local. I stared at Zachary, trying to take in his presence. He was dressed as he had been at our first meeting, his appearance blending in with the common-born population. I wasn't at risk of mistaking him for a common-born this time, however. His face had... Sorry. Whoa. I have a tickle in my throat. Okay. His face had been burned on my memory after our short but intense interaction, and now that I was seeing him without the dishevelment of our first meeting, I could see subtle signs that he didn't fit. He carried himself with confidence despite his age, and his clothes, though understated, were well made and perfectly fitted to him. "What are you doing here?" I blurted out, too shocked for niceties. Too shocked for niceties. He glanced up and down the street before seizing my arm. Dragging me behind him, he hurried into a side alley, igniting memories of the attack. I pulled my arm free and tried to peer over his shoulder. Surely he wasn't being pursued by fresh attackers. When I looked back at him inquiringly, he was staring at me. I frowned, peering down at my dress. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Is something amiss?" He flushed and cleared his throat, looking away. "You just look different when you're not. Covered in dirt and blood." I grinned at him. "I was just thinking the same about you." "I was just thinking the same thing about you." I snuck another look at my dress, remembering belatedly that I had dressed up for school, something I normally never did. But knowing the humiliation I would be walking into, I had needed the extra armor. It hadn't been enough, though, and I had forgotten my appearance in my wanderings around the city. I snuck another glance at Zachary, my eyes lingering on his broad shoulders and the smooth fit of his shirt and leather vest. His arms looked as whole and undamaged as my own, so his healing must have been sufficient. He cleared his throat again. "I was hoping I would run into you. I wanted to make sure you were all right." He nodded toward my arm. "You don't have a bandage, so you must have gone to a healing clinic after all. Do you need—" I cut him off, suddenly unable to bear him covering... Hi, Leon. Okay, now I've lost my place. I cut him off, suddenly unable to bear him offering to cover the cost of the healing. At the beginning, I had fully intended to insist on it, but too much had happened to upend my life since then. Now it felt, however illogically, like it would be one humiliating blow too many. Yes, my arm is fine, as you can see. That's good, then. Zachary cleared his throat yet again, unaccountably awkward. I let anger stir inside me, strong enough to wash away the humiliation. It had been this boy's fault that I had missed the final test and provided the teacher with the excuse he needed to choose Byron over me. I met with Faley the day after the attack, Zachary continued when I said nothing. Of course you did. My words brimmed with resentment, since he hadn't sufficiently ruined my life already. Zachary fell back a step, his eyes widening. Ruined your life? I took a risk and didn't turn you in. I thought you wanted the letter delivered. What I wanted was to deliver the letter myself, I snapped. What I wanted was to stay on my teacher's good side, to come first in the final test of the year, and to be chosen for sealing when the shrouded mage was caught. But then you had to get yourself attacked. I swallowed, forcing the flow of words to stop. Zachary's brow creased. What does my attack have to do with any of that? I delivered the letter and even intervened on your behalf with Faley. Unlike me, she knows your teacher's identity and she wanted to confront him, but she promised not to do so when I pointed out that he would likely retaliate against you. Shame washed over me. I was unloading my anger on Zachary when he had been trying to protect me. He continued to watch me with concerned eyes. I heard about the arrest. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was him. I'm just getting myself mixed up. How's it going, Leon? It's been a while since I've recorded something. I've been busy moving, so my throat is not quite where it normally is. Okay. Okay. And now my teleprompt app wants to go do its own thing. Oh, thank you. This is a weird one for me because I recorded two different but same world series for this author, but it's been 5 years, and the author just recently reached out saying she wanted to do a novella set in the same universe. So it's different characters but same world and pronunciations and stuff, so I'm just kind of still getting into that world again. I thought, he hesitated, no one's going to fail the academy this year, and you've just turned 18, so this sealing was a last-minute chance for you. I thought you'd be so excited. My shoulders slumped. My mother was worried I wouldn't rest after the healing. I can't imagine why, he murmured, but he said the words quietly, his eyes still showing concern. So she worked a second composition and forced me to sleep. For 4 days. I missed the final test. You slept for 4 days. His eyes widened. From one composition. How much power did it have? I shrugged uncomfortably. My family thinks it must mean my body was in desperate need of rest. Zachary nodded slowly. Just how hard have you been driving yourself studying? You must have been on the point of collapse if your body shut down so completely in response to the rest composition. I only had to make it through one more week, I said, a little of my fire returning. And then I could have slept for a week straight. I would have had all summer to prepare for the university year starting. You were planning to apply for blah, 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 blah. You were planning to apply to the university. A gleam of interest lit his eyes, but he must have realized I hadn't been chosen for sealing after all, because the spark sputtered and died. So your teacher chose someone else. I nodded. Byron is a robot. If I'd come first in that test, I could have lodged an official complaint over not being chosen. There would have been a review, but as it is, and you only needed healing because you saved me. Zachary looked appalled, and my heart instantly contracted, my anger forgotten. It wasn't your fault you were attacked, I said quickly. If anyone is to blame for this mess, it's those thieves who thought they'd try their hand at being copycat murderers. Fresh indignation filled me. I just wish I'd recognized one of them. I would love to hand them over to the Reds. Zachary's eyes slid away from mine, discomfort filling his face, although I couldn't imagine what had caused it. I need to go, he murmured, and my own face fell. I didn't try to stop him, though. How could I? I had no reason to keep him. But as I watched him disappear down the street, his pace fast, my mood once again plummeted. At our first meeting, he had discovered me with illicit writing, and at our second, I had used him as the target for all the... Oof. And at our second, I had used him as the target for all the anger, frustration, and disappointment whirling inside me. Was it any wonder that he couldn't get away fast enough? It wasn't until I was lying in bed that night that it occurred to me to wonder what he had been doing, wandering around the lower city so soon after being attacked, and dressed once again like a common-born. Was he asking to run into trouble? Sighing, I rolled over and told myself that Zachary's mysteries had nothing to do with me. I wasn't likely to ever see him again. Okay, that is chapter 4. And I just want to see... Oh, come on. I swear my teleprompt app has a life of its own. I just want to see how long the next chapter is. Looks like... Do I have time for another chapter? Yeah, I think so. Definitely. Spoiler. Aw, thank you. It was good seeing you. You take care, okay? Bye, Liam. Chapter 5. The next day, I didn't leave my house. I told myself it was because I wanted to rest, but if I was honest, I didn't want to find myself scanning the streets for Zachary's absent face. Seeing him practically run from me had brought the reality of my future crashing in. I had hoped to win myself a position of value, To become someone like Faithy, who was respected everywhere she went. But I would have to find a new, simpler dream now. But while I could avoid the streets, I couldn't avoid my family. They all gathered for the evening meal, except Anson, and the concerned looks my mother kept sending in my direction weren't as surreptitious as she thought. Oh, okay. Which ones? Gotta find Harvey's voice again. It's been too long since we did a day trip out of the city, Harvey announced suddenly. I thought we could all go tomorrow. I'm just losing his voice there. It's been too long since we did a day trip out of the city, Harvey announced suddenly. I thought we could all go tomorrow. What? Timothy protested. But the shrouded mage is being sealed tomorrow. I heard they're going to march him through the streets to the sealing ceremony, and my friends are all planning to go watch. That's ridiculous, Alice exclaimed. The Reds would never do that. What if he escaped? Timothy scoffed and began a hot reply, but Harvey cut him off with a significant look toward me. Oh, yeah. Timothy and Ellis exchanged uncomfortable looks and focused on their half-empty plates of food. I thought we could take a picnic down to the river, Harvey continued as if they hadn't interrupted. I sighed loudly. You can't all be tiptoeing around me forever, and I'm not going to spontaneously combust if I'm inside the city walls when the sealing ceremony takes place. I managed a grin. Although I do appreciate the thought, Harvey. Even if Mother was definitely the one to come up with the idea and pressure you into making the suggestion. Alice cackled. Busted. I'm so sorry, Arya. Tears clogged my mother's voice. I never dreamed this would happen. I know. You were just worried about me. I stood and circled the table to give her an awkward side hug. I had been furious with her in the first flush of my heartbreak, but my fury had burned out when I stood in front of Zachary and realized the true blame lay with the criminals. And Teacher Wendell. I was reserving plenty of blame for him. My mother hugged me back fiercely, and I barely extricated myself to return to my seat. You could come along with my friends to see the sealed mage, Timothy offered tentatively. Gordy decided last week that he's in love with you, so they won't mind. I gaped at him. Gordy thinks he's in love with me. But he's 14. Ellis shrugged. All my friends think you're pretty. All my friends think you're pretty. His expression and tone suggested this was a great mystery. I need to make that sound much more mysterious. Oh my God. Hello? Just listening to the word that said it's been too long. It has been too long. And now I feel kind of old. It's good to see you, Ben. Okay, I want to do that line again. Okay. Truly, truly a blast from the past. It's very weird. I was thinking about you, not that long ago, just like a couple of weeks ago, maybe? All my friends think you're pretty. His expression and tone suggested this was a great mystery that he hadn't yet been able to fathom. They don't live with her. Wait, oh, fuck. Okay. Wrong character. Okay. Timothy says this. Okay, Ellis, different character, different character. Okay. All my friends think you're pretty. His expression and tone suggested this was a great mystery that he hadn't yet been able to fathom. They don't live with her, Timothy explained wisely, and they haven't seen her when she's angry. That must explain it. I am not going to see the sealed mage with a 14-year-old who wants to make eyes at me, I said firmly. There's no point going at all, Ellis said in a superior tone. The Reds aren't going to parade him through town. Gordy heard it from his sister, whose husband works at— I have to agree with Ellis on this one, I said, cutting off Timothy's spiel before it grew even more ridiculous. They built the shielded hall for the sealing ceremonies at the main law enforcement hub, and that's sure to be the hub where they're keeping the shrouded mage. They have no need to parade him through the streets on the way to the ceremony. Exactly, Ellis exclaimed. They'll have been keeping him in the cells there from the start. Timothy lapsed into sulky silence before suddenly shooting his closest brother a look. And what will you be doing tomorrow instead, then? Nothing that has anything to do with you, Ellis said too quickly, and Timothy gave him a disgusted look. I glanced between them, interested despite myself. What did Timothy know that I didn't? Had Ellis found a new girl to chase? I can't approve of your strange fascination with such a violent person, my mother said, not seeming to notice the tension between her youngest sons. I don't see why any of us need to lay eyes on him. In fact, I sincerely hope none of us ever do. As you've said every day since we first heard of his existence. I shook my head, but I was smiling. As you've said every day since we first heard of his existence. I shook my head, but I was smiling. And what else would a mother hope for, I ask you? She said with a return of her usual tart tone. She stood to begin. She stood to begin clearing the table, and we all clambered to our feet to help her. I tried to position myself so that I could manage a quiet question to Ellis, but he adroitly avoided. Man, my throat is going today. And what about you, Ben? Are you still out there? Do you ever get to act somewhere or another reality show? And probably not, but still. But he adroitly avoided me, and as soon as the table was cleared, he disappeared completely, although it was far too early for bed. The next morning he didn't appear at the breakfast table at all, and curiosity got the better of me. Where's Alice? I asked Timothy. What's he doing today? I didn't really expect him to answer. Despite the squabbles, my younger two brothers had always been a pair, just as the older two were, but he muttered a single word under his breath. Traitor. I straightened, fixing him with my sternest older sister stare. What does that mean? You tell me right now. What does that mean? You tell me right now, Timothy, or I'll find a snake to put in your bed. Timothy threw me a horrified look. See, if they saw this side of you, none of my friends would think you were so pretty. Never mind that. You tell me what's going on with Ellis. Timothy sighed and slumped as far into his chair as he could, as if he hoped to disappear beneath the table. Ellis left the advanced school after only 2 years, but he's still friends with most of the boys his own age there. I stared at him for half a second, not comprehending. Then everything became clear. Byron is the same age as Ellis. Timothy nodded, his eyes on his food. All the second year. Second year? All the 16-year-old boys are accompanying him to the sealing ceremony and waiting to see his wrists when he comes out. And Ellis is going with them, I exclaimed, now understanding the label Timothy had given him. Oh, of all the traitorous! I let my voice trail off with a wary glance at our mother, who was coming toward the table with a fresh dish. The kitchen door burst open, slamming against the wall as someone tumbled through the opening, gasping for breath. Mother dropped the dish she was holding and it smashed, food spilling across the floor. "Ellis!" she cried in indignation, glaring at the new arrival. "What in the kingdom are you—" But he ignored her, his eyes on me as he struggled to speak through his panting breaths. "Just came from the law enforcement hub," he managed to pant out. "Yes, I heard you went there," I said with narrowed eyes. He waved a hand through the air as if to wave away such petty concerns. Heard the clerk talking," he managed to get out. Timothy straightened. "Don't tell me Byron's name wasn't on the list after all. That would serve him right. I don't know why you're friends with such a poisonous toad. Last week he said, no, his name's there." Ellis's words became more comprehensible as he regained his breath. "But so is Aria's." What? I leaped to my feet, my chair clattering to the floor behind me. "What do you mean? Are you sure?" He nodded, gesturing frantically toward the doorway. "We were hanging around in the foyer of the law enforcement hub after Byron went in, and we heard two of the clerks talking. One was listing off the names of the people who hadn't yet arrived. So close to the end of the chapter too. All right, I'm just gonna make a few quick. Okay. One was listing off the names of the people who hadn't arrived yet, and he said your name. I even asked to be sure, and it was definitely you." "But I don't understand," I said, bewildered and frozen with shock. "What does that mean?" "It means your name got on the list as well as Byron's," Ellis said. "It means your name is down to be sealed. Today," he added when I didn't immediately move. My mother sucked in an audible breath, looking between Ellis and me. "Aria!" Timothy shouted, shoving me roughly in the back, propelling me toward the door. But how did it happen?" I asked, still struggling to make sense of Ellis's dramatic pronouncement. "Never mind that," Timothy said. "The ceremony is happening this morning, and who knows when the next one will be. You have to go, Aria." His words finally penetrated the fog of my confusion. I strode toward the door, and Ellis stepped aside to let me through. "Run!" he shouted after me as I stepped into the street, and I picked up my pace. It made no sense. It was impossible. If I was on the list, I should have been informed, surely. And yet, administrative errors did occur. I pushed the questions out of my mind so I could focus on running. It didn't matter how it had happened as long as I made it there in time. I dodged a wagon and leaped over a sack someone had dumped on the pavement while he chatted with a neighbor. The two men shouted after me, but I was already well past them. I ducked and wove as I careened down the street, calling apologies over my shoulder whenever I bumped against someone. The ceremony being at the central hub meant it was closer to the palace and the sections of the city inhabited by the mage families than to my home. Okay. The ceremony being at the central hub meant it was closer to the palace and the sections of the city inhabited by the mage families than to my home. My pace began to lag as my breathing grew laboured, but the spectre of missing the ceremony by seconds filled me with a second wind, and I increased my speed again. I careened around a corner and onto South Road, the main street that ran all the way through Corrin to the palace itself. I had avoided it until the last possible moment, knowing it would be bustling with traffic. And sure enough, it was far busier than the smaller street I had just exited. But ahead of me, I caught a glimpse of freestanding red stone. I dodged 3 horses, a donkey, and an elaborate carriage, ignoring the shouts of disapproval that followed me down the street. Taking the steps into the building 2 at a time, I tripped, staggering into the foyer, and nearly falling. Okay, that's it for me. I'm not going to be doing any more recording from this book, just because um, it is a brand new book. It hasn't come out yet, and the author would prefer that it not be completely out there in audio, even if it is with many, many mistakes from me. Um, with that in mind, if this sounds like something that you're interested in, the novella's probably going to be out in a couple of months. And in the meantime, you can get the Spoken Mage series, the entire series, which is 5 books, and then the sequel series, The Hidden Mage, which I think is also 5 books. They're already all out, at least in Audible, but I think actually everywhere you get audiobooks. Thanks for joining me. Bye.